Hello, hello. What's up, everyone? Letting some folks roll in here, but appreciate everyone coming out to that have joined us here live. I realized there was a slight issue with the link, I believe. So don't worry, we're going to send out the recording to everyone afterwards. But appreciate you checking it out. So we're just going to get rolling today. We're going to be talking about increasing your online sales to your store without ad spend. But I do want to kind of point out that this is not a training on how you could do things without ad spend. There is a certain amount of advertising dollars you'll have to spend to grow the brand at any meaningful rate. However, a lot of money is wasted on kind of the wrong things, and the like the steps that need to happen to maximize that ad spend is often um, uh, ball gets dropped there a lot. So those are what we're going to be talking about is organically the strategies you can use, systems you can put in place to help drive more effectiveness out of your advertising cost. And one of our clients recently, we actually reduced their ad spend by 50% while increasing their sales by over 150% in that same time period on their subscriptions. And you can do the same. So the other kind of overarching principle before we dive in is we're going to cover kind of a few different things here, but we want to think about kind of our advertising budget like bodybuilding. So athletes will go through phases where they are adding muscle, they're gaining weight, and they're not as worried about if they gain fat along that process. And then there's times where they're leaning out, and the goal is we want to preserve the muscle that we built, and we want to drop body fat. It's really hard to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. Almost impossible. Folks do it, but it's very, very difficult. The same is true in advertising. So there are times where you want to focus on, we're going to increase ad spend, and ROAS is going to remain fairly stagnant, perhaps decline, perhaps bump, but it's going to be pretty stagnant. And the goal is to maintain the effectiveness of our advertising dollars while growing our budget, which does yield more results, but kind of at the same rate. And then we go through a phase where we're going to really lean down. We're going to trim the fat, get rid of things that aren't working, implement strategies, and double down on things that are working. And the whole goal is to increase the ROAS, and we're not adding spend on that. Now we're trying to get more effective. So the strategies that we're going to cover today, from understanding the audience, how to get like more feedback.
Really quick, we haven't updated screens yet.
Oh, technical
Sorry,
issues.
little technical difficulties, but we're here to catch it.
We're here to catch it. Oh, that might have been me. So sorry, I just got to this agenda part anyway. So we got folks here. We're ready to help you out.
Mr. Producer's here. I'm the eyes and ears.
So this is kind of the agenda, but all of these items from the top to bottom, it's kind of in that vein of let's trim the fat, let's lean down, and let's get more effective with our spend. And if you need some marketing budget to allocate other places, this is a really great opportunity to get the same results out of what that you're getting right now, but actually reducing your spend. So just a little bit about me. I'm Ethan, CEO here at Takeover Media. We help brands grow their revenue. We work with a lot of D2C brands as well as B2B folks, and more of a lead gen type capacity. But myself, a serial entrepreneur, a lot of wins, a lot of losses. I've had the pleasure of consulting with hundreds of brands, from folks like IBM and 8x8, all the way down to your latest startup that no one's ever heard of. Actually launched my own SaaS startup and had experiences there. So what I learned through this time is that no business is the same, of course, but there are overarching principles and frameworks that apply across anything that wins. And there's also commonalities and things that lose. Even if the individual specifics are a little bit different for everyone, the frameworks are the same. And that's what we're going to go through today. And ultimately here at Takeover Media, we implement aligned strategic revenue generating systems across all of your go-to-market efforts. And that's what we focus on with clients. That's how we're able to get them more results out of what they're spending already. And I'm going to be showing you some of those exact frameworks. Obviously, can't go into every detail, but I am going to give you the best nuggets of all these categories I absolutely can today. And I'm sure everyone's thinking, sounds a little bit too good to be true. What's the catch? Again, I kind of covered that in the prelude of I'm not anti-ad spend, but let's just get the most out of it. And like really just kind of hoping that we're going to spend more money and increase results really isn't a strategy. An aligned, automated, scalable approach to all these items you see on your screen marketing campaigns, offers, content, creative, social, etc. List goes on. In an aligned way, that is strategy. And that's what we want to talk about today and what we're going to focus in on. So diving in, it all starts with our customer. This is the place we start with every single one of our clients. And usually when I ask kind of intro questions around who is your customer, tell me about your customer profiles. And of course you might have 2 or 3, depending on the size here. If you're, on kind of more of the, startup end range, maybe just getting going, or somewhere around, 3 million, 5 million in revenue. You might have kind of like one main customer. If you're doing a lot more than that, you might have a few identified segments that are dominant. But the rule here is the 80-20 principle. And what we want to really focus in on is like, what is that 20% that generates 80% of our revenue? Because like across any given business, 80% of revenue accounts to 20% of our customer base. Most cases, even more extreme. I've seen, upwards of 90-10 or even more extreme. So if we can really zero in who they are, they also like tend to behave the same. And it can really help us from like our overarching marketing strategy. And so that's what we always want to kind of look at. So there are some key things that you should look to collect. If you're not collecting this currently, I'm gonna give you some ideas of how you can get them. But having like a really great baseline data is super important. So there's like kind of the demographics and behavioral stuff, obviously. So most of these are catching through normal processes, might be a couple you haven't thought about, but age, gender, what type of revenue they're spending with you, products that they're typically, purchasing, patterns like that, interests they have outside of so what other brands are they buying, technology usage, are they buying mobile, desktop, what is, kind of their interactions with your other pieces of content look like, and where are they, that kind of thing. Habits, routines, a few examples here. There's probably, you can think of a lot of relevant ones for your specific, industry, but just kind of throwing out some examples. And then you have some things that like sometimes you don't look at as much, or you may not have software in place to measure these things, but there are some pretty like cost-effective solutions I'll share. But like time to currency. And we want to think about currency in 2 forms. Currency number 1 is information. Currency number 2 is dollars. So, how long does it take for someone to give us their information from an initial interaction with an advertisement, blog, YouTube video, whatever, to, hey, here's my email. And then from there to when they spend money. Those are 2 very important data points that would help shape a lot of the other things that we're talking about. And then touch points, like where are they interacting with the brand? Because we might be in all the places, and I suggest you do be, but there might be some channels that we can focus in on, and like in those leaning out phase, like triple down on what's working well and identify what are the channels that really shine with this customer. So that's kind of the data points that there's a lot that you should track, but what I think is most transformative and helps you inform your strategy the most, those would be where I would start. And so to go about getting that, there's obviously, if you're like any major platform, Shopify, et cetera, you're going to capture a lot of that information for kind of beyond the basics with like demographical. You can do things like gated content. So that might be a guide or a download or some sort of digital asset that you can require them to input a little bit more information to get it. You could be just, couple questions in addition to the email address, et cetera, so that you can gather some data points, and you can even work through that funnel, which is usually what we do with most of our clients. There might be a top line that's very lightweight to get the download. And then there's more within that. You got to give a little bit more information for each time to get to the next thing. So give and get models there. Quizzes and surveys are good too. You can utilize that like within the next point too, which is loyalty. But in general, email quizzes on the site, again, a quiz to get maybe your skincare brand, and you have a lot of different shades of some special like facial product that has sunscreen in it, right? And so maybe they take a quiz to figure out like what is the right shade or what is the right strength or things like that. And then you're gathering those data points that you want. Then loyalty programs, rewards, those are kind of low-hanging fruit ways to gather this data. So that could be something, most rewards operate on some sort of points or score system. And so you can give them free points in exchange for information, like take this survey and get 25 points, or whatever your model might be. It's a really great way to get additional information from your customers. And then one of the most underutilized things like we're doing right now. So lives, webinars, even we have one brand that does like interviews with their customers. Really cool. People love that. there's lots of ideas here, but it's one of the most underutilized things that I see direct consumer brands like not doing or not doing well. So that's kind of how you can get a little bit more detail outside of that. For brand interaction, you really just kind of need an attribution intelligence platform. So big ones, like Northbeam, Triple Whale, great products. If maybe you're a little early on, you're looking for something a bit more scalable for you are right now. I like Segmetrics. That's what I use with my clients. Great platform. Tell them I send them your way, you them their way. And then for like general loyalty, Ethos is an awesome platform. Takes a little bit of a different approach on loyalty, more towards like kind of a premium type of experience. So you can lead a little bit more of the value than just discounts. It's like gated content and that type of community type vibe within the loyalty program. You can do the points and discounts as well, but I find it really, really great tools we usually use. And then for quizzes and surveys, check out Octane. It's a really cool app, lets you do a lot of this stuff. And it's super smooth, super easy. If you're on Shopify, plugs right in, easy peasy. And then again, Segmetrics for attribution is what I'd recommend there. So if you don't have these things in place or you've been thinking about it, there's a lot of platforms do all of these things, and you can certainly apply what I'm talking about within any of those. If you're looking for one, these would be really great suggestions, and I think very scalable with brands, and the teams are awesome. So next up, I'm moving fast and get a lot to cover, and I know I promised this in 45 minutes. Feel free to pop in questions in the chat. We are paying attention to that, should that come up.
If it's too much for them, we also got the offer where he gets coaching.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot more to go into all of these, but we do have a special offer for you here today on this webinar. So if this is really interesting, you want to dig in more, we do have a offer for 4 coaching calls with me that I'll work with you, just like the brands I work with, more of a coaching advisory type of capacity. We're giving 4 of those for only $699, which is normally, what is it, 12 something, 1400. So it's about half off, and these would be really great to kind of dig into this more specifically for your brand. But this will still be really great for where to start, and you can go implement today. So on CRO, I have a little bit different take on conversion rate optimization. Most people typically only focus on like the major obvious thing, which is, hey, what is my conversion rate when traffic hits my site? And like, obviously you should optimize your site for that. However, what's often not as considered or as heavily focused on is optimizing everything around the people that like don't buy, but fall into who that like really great customer is. So we all have complexity bias as human beings. It means that we typically, like even though solutions are almost always like really simple, we tend to favor more complicated answers. Makes us feel unique and special. But like when we just listen to the data and simplify it, most solutions are actually like very simple. And so for conversion rate, the way that I kind of like to think about it is you have the basics, which are obvious things. So speed is of like utmost importance. We factor that in like number one in everything that we do in terms of the customer experience from any sort of marketing initiative. You should always prioritize that image load speed, app sequencing, etc. You want that to be optimized for site speed for sure. Outside of that, leveraging UGC and testimonials is one of the most important things you can do, especially like when it comes to your product pages, which I have like detailed product pages here. You can include more of that inside of your product pages, but especially like if you're in a supplement or apparel, like those types of industry, food and things like that, this is super powerful. And the number one thing people look for is like, how does it taste, or like, how do these fit? So generating reviews like that, which we can talk about a couple of apps you can use to help generate more. Actually, I think it's more around email and SMS, but help you generate more of that, but getting that from your customers as much as possible. And then on your product pages, we have this concept of like kind of continuously updating and improving FAQs. So this also plays in the content strategy that we'll talk about later. But you probably get the same type of question 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, 20, 100 times a week, right? On the same top 5 questions. So those are probably in your FAQs. And then you probably get some that are a little bit less frequent, but they still are common. And you can leverage that to continuously update your product pages, which is also good for SEO, just seeing that things are being updated. But that's something you should continually look at on like a bi-weekly or weekly basis, depending on your volume. And then lastly, kind of boring, people don't think about, but having a really great fraud solution in place to reduce friction at the checkout, so you can like reduce the amount it takes for someone to place an order. Because things flag Shopify will flag items as fraud. For example, if the billing address is like a mismatch, or the zip code is where they're ordering from is different than the billing address, and things of that nature. So a good fraud app to kind of help determine legitimate from fake purchases, and allow you to accept more will net make you more money in the long term. So just one little easy implementable thing there. And then you have like the more, what I think is the magic. So outside of typical, like kind of just think this side a CRO is like those generalized solutions like never produce the maximum impact. Those are all good, and you need to have those as precursors to just a great site. But then it's like, how do we position everything that we're doing, from what message we're displaying in different offers, what's positioned first on the homepage, et cetera, to cater to that 20% that generates 80% of revenue. So first, it kind of starts with rethinking conversion rate, because not everyone, if we're only optimizing for those first eyeballs when we hit the site, we're going to miss a ton in the long run. So we want to remember that currency is king, and information is the king of currency. And then you have dollars. So people give us their information first, and then they convert later. And I don't know, it's different for every brand, but typically, it's somewhere between like 14 to upwards of like maybe 24, 25 days from information to purchase is usually what we see. But there's been some exceptions to that. And so that's a lot amount of time, and there's a lot of variance there. And understanding that process and what they go through, you can optimize all these systems and think about conversion rate also in terms of like what I always say is the fortunes and the follow-up. And that's really the strategy here, is setting yourself up to follow up with those people. But on the technical side, kind of the basics there, and even some other kind of more advanced stuff. I love Behamics. It's a really great tool that you can install on the site, and it'll point out like where your friction points are on your site from like a technical standpoint of this is what's causing friction. This is kind of how much money it's cost you based on your orders, volume, traffic, et cetera. Really cool. And if you're in a marketing, like if you're in a management position and you need to justify fixes or improvements, this helps to, with your argument of showing you the business case of like, hey, this is the impact. If we fix this, it equals X amount of revenue over, the next 12 months or whatever the case may be. So fantastic tool. And I have this, I already said this quote to you guys earlier. I forgot to put it on this slide. Anyway, that's kind of how we want to think about CRO. So oh, sorry. I think I skipped a slide. Well, I think I lost a slide, but another platform I was going to, maybe I just took it off somewhere, but
We'll find it eventually.
for UGC and testimonials. Oh, that's what I put it on a different slide. I do have some thoughts around like kind of what you can leverage email and SMS for. We'll cover that in that section. I forgot I reordered it. Okay, my bad, Ethan. Okay, so social media is kind of the next topic here, and this one makes a lot of people like sigh and moan, and it's a lot to keep up with. There could be a lot of wasted effort, but that's kind of true with anything in marketing and sales. But it does matter. It's just like all content is not created equal. And what we see a lot of folks do is kind of just distribute the same content across, all platforms, which there's an argument to be made that's better than nothing. And I would tend to agree. But also, what industry you're in, I posting suboptimal things for the platform it's like so easily fixable. You should definitely take the time to do that, and it will immediately increase the results you're getting from social media. But sometimes that gets thought about that it's just like way too hard. I have some methods I'm going to go through today that will help make that so much easier and scalable, because that's really the problem. And we need to be engaging. Like ultimately, like with social media platforms, we only win when folks are engaging with our content. So there is some amount of like testing and creativity involved there, but there's also some kind of low hanging fruit that we'll talk about. So just a couple things to keep in mind. This was a study from Harvard Business Review. Customers who engage with a brand on social media are 3 times more likely to buy from that brand. There's obviously like higher studies done, but this is a good enough proof point here. But it can be very, very impactful it's about building trust and credibility and like awareness. And you want to build a relationship with that person as much as you possibly can via, the world that we live in. But it has a really direct impact. The next part that's really interesting to me is that customers who interact with the brand not only are 3 times more likely to buy, but they also typically spend 20 to 40% more. So those two things alone, if we could add 3 times more purchases, conversions on our social media account, and we could increase the average spend by 20 to 40%. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but that's a huge impact to immediate revenue. And there's some low hanging fruit ways that you can do that. So we want to think about kind of a couple things like the content. We're going to talk a little bit about buckets and flywheels next, but we want to bucket the content into kind of these 3 buckets you see here: awareness, consideration, conversion. And I'll talk through that in just a moment. And we also need a flywheel to consistently produce the content that we need that is valuable, good, and falls into these buckets. And then we want to also leverage those customer service inquiries with our social media strategy, which we'll kind of go into in a second. But we also always remember the goal. And the goal is not necessarily just to gain followers and just to get engagement. What we want to do is, with that engagement, is we want to convert them to a channel that we own. So that's going to typically be email and SMS, barring some few exceptions. We want to get these people from our social accounts onto our list that we own. That's the goal. We're going to sell some stuff on social media too, and that's great. We're going to do a percentage of that anyway. But what we have to make sure we're doing is capturing as much data as we can. So kind of more insight on kind of the buckets thought. So again, the buckets are awareness, consideration, conversion. Awareness is going to be like value-based type content. So how do you help someone gain something they want or avoid something they don't? Essentially, is kind of a core way to think about that. There are always ways to do this. And this is the number one bit of pushback I typically get in like first conversation with folks is, oh, we have a boring business. How are we going to do this? There is not a single business that doesn't have the opportunity to create value-based content. And it's because sometimes we forget about what the bucket is that we're making this for. We just need to get more attention. We need to get more eyeballs. We need to get more people who are aware of who we are. And so if you sell pet food, okay, and treats and beds and toys, an article around, 3 tips to help improve your dog's gut health. You probably have some insight and access to information to produce those types of articles, and you sell things for pets. So it'd be a reasonable thing for you to write about as just an example of, you can make a 60-second video for Instagram talking about these things. You can make a 15-second story that hits, kind of these 3, check out this post. It all weaves together, and you just take the one idea and it becomes the content for all of your channels. We'll talk about in a second. The next bucket's consideration, which this would be demonstrating how your product helps with that. So you might have some special treats or certain types of bones or whatever it might be that you sell that help improve dogs' gut health. And you would write up a second article around how your product helps them do that. That's when they're a bit more aware of you now. They might be open to purchasing, as well as UGC and testimonial content are great for this bucket as well. So people unboxing or unpackaging or talking about how they like your thing or how they use your thing, any of that is great, as well as direct reviews and testimonials. And then the third bucket is conversion, which we are going to make a hard ask. And that hard ask might not just be buy this thing. It could be sign up for our news list. It could be opt into our SMS list. It could be enter to win this contest, some sort of direct CTA. And then you have the flywheel of producing the content. So the simple answer here is you want one single long form of content from which all other content within that campaign is created. This is the most scalable way to do this versus trying to think of, okay, I need 13 different pieces of content this week for these different platforms. Let me think about things. Or let me just make one that I put across all of them. This is better, easier than the former, better than the latter. So that could be something like a podcast you do weekly. That could be something like I was talking about, like articles or guides or downloads type of thing, a digital asset. That could be a webinar. That could be a customer interview. That could be whatever you want it to be, but something you commit to on some sort of regular basis, monthly, biweekly, weekly, to produce some long format piece of content. You can then take that content and break it down into topics. So within your 3 bullets to how to improve your dog's gut health, you now have 3 new ideas for short form pieces of content to support that overarching campaign, which is also being advertised to, which is also being distributed to email and SMS lists. And that's how you start the flywheel. So implement kind of those couple of things and you'll start getting more results out of your social, as well as your ads will start working better. That will be a huge impact on the direct cost per acquisition on your ads. Some tools to help you do it. Hands down, if you're trying to convert folks from your social media accounts to an email and SMS list, High Tide is the way to go. Super great platform, great guys too. What it does is essentially it kind of automatically DMs folks that are engaging with your content. So you're producing good content, you're putting a lot of work in there, people are commenting, they're liking, we're not really converting a lot of those folks. This will instantly change that. It's a fantastic platform. And for UGC and testimonials, you could also leverage some of these different tools to kind of manipulate the way you use them to get what you want. But you can really utilize like whatever you're using on the back end for email and SMS. These can be where you offer rewards, like in your loyalty program for giving additional information or whatever it might be. So for getting the like content from your user, like the more you let them just be them is really important. If you're using any sort of like influencers, definitely like they make content for a living, so like let them do their thing. But even with everyday users, you can give them some guidelines of like, hey, tell us how you feel about this, tell you how you feel about that, and give them somewhat of a kind of a guide to use. But just let them be authentic, and that stuff does the best with your customers. And you can really just kind of ask for that and give away store credit or whatever it might be in return. And then asking for that in your loyalty for additional points is another really great way to collect it. So wrapping that up, moving on to SMS. I know fast with 30 minutes in already. Email and SMS is like one of the most underrated things, but and maybe not. It's just kind of always an afterthought, because even if you do it poorly, you get some results on this, but you can also get much better results. Typically for brands that are using this channel well, 20 to 40% of their revenue is coming from email and SMS. And SMS is usually like the highest converting channel, although email typically does attribute more revenue. However, your SMS, if you really put work into building those lists, they do generate typically a higher conversion rate on your customers. So I'm a huge fan of tackling that early. Some ways that we can kind of maximize the data once we have it. We obviously have to get the data. I recommend a 2-step opt-in on your site with an increasing offer. So that's what we found to be effective. We've tried like just kind of the same offer, and you got to put the SMS, you got to put your cell phone in to get the offer. What I found is you kind of splitting it up as giving a reward for email, and the next step is, hey, get an additional X. That tends to work well on opt-in rates. But once you have the machine going, I'm sure you have some sort of list right now, some basic automations that we're going to kind of talk through today, and maybe how you can improve these. You should definitely have all of this on this list. There are more, but this is what I consider like the basics foundation. They generate a lot of the revenue for brands, assuming you're doing a lot of other things right. But we need a welcome series, abandoned cart, abandoned browse, upsell flows, purchase flows. Those are probably 2 that get missed a lot, which are kind of key ones we're going to cover. And newsletters also very underrated. And sometimes, again, just kind of whatever you have this week going out is the thought. But for the welcome series, that's one of the most important pieces. Remember kind of a couple key things. So separate email and SMS. We used to combine these, is kind of how folks did it in the past, but it is kind of better to separate them for many reasons, but keep those separate. The second thing that we see folks kind of do wrong a lot is not making the offer easy to get. So if someone opts in for an offer on your site, they're kind of immediately expecting to use that. Let's make it like really easy for them to do that. Put it front and center. I know that you have other things you want to tell them about, but always make that very easy at the top. And then you can kind of go into your other items. Remember, it's going to be multi-step. So you don't have to try to throw the whole kitchen sink at them in the first email. Think about the customer experience, keep that one lightweight, and you can follow it up with more valuable information on like a 3 to 4 day at a time cadence. Point to your resources, point to your loyalty, and point to your social. So if you have any sort of blogs, guides, downloads, quizzes, anything like that, point to that in an email. And I would have one that's kind of focused on that. And then you have loyalty and point to benefits there. And once you have there, point to socials, where to follow you, where to find you. I would suggest kind of have a main place like all your content goes. It makes it a really great like distribution point to find you in other content platforms. That's YouTube for a lot of folks, but could be everything's for you. So that's kind of what to keep in mind there on the welcome series. Upsell flows are going to be huge, especially if you have like a lot of products. It's useful for folks only with a few products too. Of course, it's very good. But if you have a lot of products, it can be really interesting when you gather data and look at like commonly bought together or commonality and follow-up purchases for customers and kind of that data conversation we had to leverage here. But essentially, we want to make it product specific. Again, if you have like 1,000 product SKUs, then I understand you can't, that's like a crazy amount of time spent. Maybe you do it more by collections in that sense. So like types and categories of products. If you only have a handful of products, we have several clients only have, 7 to 10 different types of products, like very specialty. Then you can make it very product specific. About 14 days post-purchase, depending on your ship times and all that kind of stuff. But you want to, whatever it is, you want to have it give them time to get there and use it ideally. So apparel might be a little bit different than supplements, et cetera. So just kind of think about the unboxing time and usage of your typical item that you sell. And you want to contain a relevant offer. So a lot of times like reviews are the only thing that's thought about here. You could actually leverage this as a moment to offer, maybe a certain type of product would pair well with whatever they bought, or if they bought shoes, you offer them some socks, et cetera, whatever might go together. Relevant offer is going to convert the best, even if it might not necessarily be the highest dollar figure. That's not what you want to think about here. It's LTV is what we want to think about. Then our newsletters. So this one, the most important thing is segmenting your audience. We don't want to be sending the same thing like blanket approach to everyone. So we want to take a look at those data metrics that I had you pull out in that conversation and kind of segment our profiles. There's a lot of different ways you could do that. It really depends on your product. For a supplement company, that might be like male versus female. Simply you market different there on that type of product, as well as like kids versus no kids, as well as like work versus work at office or work from home. Depends on what type of data you have available. But things like that would be really great examples to segment your list. You don't necessarily have to have 50 different ones, but you should probably generally have 3 to 4 segmentations, like at a minimum. And we always want to A/B test subject lines and previews. You should change very little things at a time, and it's just always a way to just hone in and see what audiences responding to the best, because that changes all the time, depends on what other people are doing. And the most important thing is it needs to align with your campaign strategy. So if your campaign this week is about the best lotion for you're looking young, then don't write an article about your loafers or whatever else you might sell, or don't like link to that out in your emails. We want to make it supportive of the campaign, so it's the same message is being distributed everywhere in the right way. And then leveraging video in your newsletters are like really underrated. People don't do it a lot, and if you don't have like a kind of a face to your brand, don't be afraid to like take an opportunity to make one. People like connecting with founders, with people that are deeply involved with the brand. So if that might be you or it might be someone on your team, having some sort of face associated brand always is good. Like people buy people, not brands these days. And unless you're Nike, which I doubt Nike's listening to my ad spend webinar right now, but unless you're Nike, then you need to have a face. You need to have a person that people relate to. And we want to think about this as multi-channel selling. So in like B2B software sales did that for a really long time. We think about LinkedIn touches versus email touches versus cold calls, comments on LinkedIn posts, et cetera. Lots of different touches when we're like prospecting and trying to get someone to take a meeting. The same is true with direct consumer sales. We just often forget it. We think about marketing only and not sales. But if we start thinking about our newsletters as another channel that we have to promote our current campaign and drive people in the direction we need to go through the funnel, it really is impactful. And you can do things like sending a text message to the same people you email, let them know, hey, check out our latest newsletter. We emailed you. It has XYZ 1 to 3. Point them back there. These types of little touches and efforts move mountains on open rates, engagement rates, purchase rates. It just takes a little bit of extra effort, and obviously that costs you money to send another spin, but it's totally worth it. All right, some tools that you can use to help do all the things that I just mentioned. Number one, simplify promotions. My logo didn't pop up here. You need proper attribution too. Segmetrics. I don't know why my promotions app didn't pop up. It's Abra Promotions, really great platform. You also want to work everything you can to increase your opt-in rates. Black Crow is a super great platform that helps. It'll do AI-based secondary showings to your audience of the offer to get them to opt in. Very effective. Highly recommend. For email and SMS campaigns. There's a SendLane is a really great tool. Like those guys over there, you're going to get kind of the best pricing, and it's all in one spot for anything you need there. So there's a lot more that goes into email and SMS than what I just had time to cover. Again, if you want to chat more about that, if it's an area you feel like you're lacking, this offer that we have for the webinar, the 4 coaching sessions with me, it'd be really helpful. We could dig in, we could get really in the weeds and kind of optimize that side. This is a huge revenue center, so underutilized. But again, back to social media, we want to drive people to here. So through all channels, website, social media, email, SMS, we're building our own data sets, and then we need to maximize that. All right, last thing, and then I'll wrap it up if we don't have anything over there. Metrics to pay attention to, kind of like outside typicals, obviously like LTV, average order value, things of that nature, traffic conversion rate. Track all those things, of course, in addition to what I love to leverage, you have to have something like Segmetrics to do this, but it's like first touch to currency, number one. So from seeing an article, from seeing an ad, from seeing a YouTube video, from that moment, the first touch, how long until we collect information, and then currency 1 to currency 2. So from information collected to actual purchase made, how long does that take? Is another really great data point to have, because it kind of helps shape all of your marketing campaigns. And then average amount of touches. So across ads, emails, SMS, social engagements, like before someone buys, how long is that process? How many touches is that? And my top lead producing channel. So when I say lead in terms of D2C, that is someone giving you information. They're a lead now. There's a huge impact on nurtured leads, but which channels generate the most email and SMS opt-ins? Again, we're not going to ignore the other ones. We just want to triple down. They may be different for each platform, and then we'll work to get the other ones up after we optimize, the most common channels there first. So that, combined with the data you're already going to have of typical purchases, will make all the difference in the world. Sorry, phone's ringing. And really great place to start. So I know I spit a lot at you all. Again, just so you have it, the offer here, and I forgot to put my link in the slide. How embarrassing. So we do have a link we'll share with you for it'll be in the show notes to grab that. But that's 4 one-on-one coaching sessions with me. We're going to do those weekly. These are the same type of sessions I run with my clients, where we talk about anything and everything that is related to optimizing the revenue of the store. And we also are going to put together a 30-day content strategy for you. So we'll develop that. We'll dig in, understand your business. We'll come back and we'll build a strategy just like we do for our clients. You'll go implement that. And we also get our business cheat sheets. So pretty much how to optimize a store top to bottom, from, tech to use, SEO, you have it covered there. So that's normally, $1,600, $1,599. It is half off, more than half off at $699. So it's going to go through July. We'll drop the link for everyone if you'd like to check that out, or if you want to talk a little bit more about it, book a call, see if it might be the right fit to work together. And, I think that's it.
That was everything. Yeah, good time. Very good.